Hola clase, hoy vamos a hablar sobre la hora, telling time in Spanish. So I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, ¿qué hora es? This is how you ask someone what time it is in Spanish. Sometimes people might say, ¿qué horas son? But for this class, we will focus on ¿qué hora es? How do you answer the question ¿qué hora es? So when you look at a clock, I have here on the right side what we would have in English. It's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. On the left, we have the Spanish equivalent. So if it is 1 o'clock, you would say, es la una. If it is 2 o'clock, you would say, son las dos. 3 o'clock, son las tres. 4 o'clock, son las cuatro. As you can see, you will only use the word es when we are talking about 1 o'clock. So anything between 1 o'clock and 1:59, you will use the word es. Anything after that, you will use the word son. That is because that makes it plural. So anything from 2 o'clock on is considered plural, and you would use son, which is from the verb ser that we already discussed. There's two other phrases that are helpful to know at the bottom of this chart. Es mediodía, es medianoche. It's noon, it's midnight. So if you want to say es mediodía, you would be talking about noon. Es medianoche, you'd be talking about midnight. Pretty simple. But what if it is not on the hour? What if it's 1:10? You would say es la una y 10. So literally, it is 1 o'clock and 10 minutes. If it's 3:15, you would say son las 3:15. It's 3:15. If it is 8:25, you would say son las 8:25. So this is where your lesson on numbers comes in handy from earlier in the book. Now, if you want to say it's 11:30, you would say son las 11:30. Another thing you have to learn is that sometimes Spanish speakers will use the words cuarto or media. So whenever it is 15 past the hour, you might hear someone refer to that as something like son las 3:15, 3:15. Or if it's a half an hour past, you would say son las 11:30. It's 11 and a half an hour. So just two phrases that would be helpful for you to recognize if someone refers to time in that way. Now, if it is 20 till 3, so anything after the 30 mark, so like 20 till 3, you would say son las 3:20, which literally means it is 3 o'clock minus 20. So 2:40 is 3 o'clock minus 20 minutes. If it's 8:45, you would hear it as it's 15 till 9, son las 9:15, or son las 9:15, like we learned in the last side, because cuarto means 15 minutes. If it's 9:50, 10 until 10, you would hear son las 10:10. Now, when you're talking about different times of the day, you're going to use the word day, which makes it easy to remember. So times of day, use de. De la mañana. Son las 9 de la mañana. So if you're referring to 9 a.m., most of the time in conversation, a Spanish speaker would not say 9 a.m. They might, but for the most part, they would say Son las 9 de la mañana. If it's in the afternoon, you would use de la tarde. Son las 3 de la tarde. If it's in the evening or at night, you would use the phrase de la noche. Son las 6 de la noche. So if no specific hour is mentioned, instead of using the word day, you're going to use the word por. Trabajo por la mañana. I work in the morning. So it's not specific at all. We don't know what time you're working. Just in the morning is por la mañana. Trabajo por la tarde. I work in the afternoon. Trabajo por la noche. I work in the evening. En punto. Son las 3 en punto. Means it's 3 o'clock on the dot. So this is a cognate that is helpful to think of. If you think of the word punctual, in Spanish that is puntual. So it should help you remember that en punto means on the dot. ¿A qué hora es? If someone asks you ¿a qué hora es?, they are asking at what time will something take place. So for example, what time is the appointment? ¿A qué hora es la cita? There's a couple ways that you might answer this. You could say la cita es a las 4 de la tarde. The appointment is at 4 p.m. or 4 in the afternoon. You could say es a las 4 de la tarde. It is at 4 in the afternoon. Or you could say a las 4 de la tarde, 4 in the afternoon. All of those are correct. ¿Qué día es hoy? If someone asks you ¿Qué día es hoy? What day is today? You'll need to know the days of the week. So we have lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. Here are a couple more useful words that are good to know in Spanish. If you want to say on Monday, you say el lunes. You use the article. If you want to say on Mondays, talking very in general, on Mondays I do something, you would say los lunes. So you would make the article plural. If you want to say every day, todos los días. If you want to say every Monday you do something, todos los lunes. Every week is todas las semanas. And if you do something on the weekend, it's el fin de semana. During the week is entre semana. So here's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that you probably might have heard in English, but I just liked it, so I wanted to add it here. El ayer es historia, el mañana un misterio, el día de hoy es un regalo. Por eso se llama presente. You're not going to be quizzed on this, I just wanted to add it. So, ¿qué día es hoy? A few more useful words for you. Hoy means today. Mañana, tomorrow. Pasado mañana, the day after tomorrow. Ayer, yesterday. Anteayer, the day before yesterday. Cada día, each day. Cada semana, each week. A few other important notes. In Spanish, you may have noticed that we do not capitalize the days of the week. That's a huge difference between Spanish and English. Another thing to note is that all the days of the week are masculine nouns. So when you were looking at the chart, you saw el lunes, el martes. You're going to use el for singular, and if you're talking about plural, like all Mondays you do something, you would use los. So here's an example. Mi cita con el doctor es el lunes. My appointment with the doctor is Monday. Carolina trabaja en el hospital los lunes. Carolina works in the hospital on Thursdays. On Mondays. Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes are the same in singular or plural. So you do not need to change the spelling of those words when you're referring to them in the plural. However, if you're talking about Saturday or Sunday, sábado or domingo, you do add an S to make it plural. So it would be los sábados, los domingos. Okay, calendarios. The Spanish calendar typically starts with Monday on the left and ends with Sunday on the right. So as you can see in the picture, we have lunes on the far left. This is a difference between our United States calendar, where we usually start with Sunday. So this might cause a little bit of confusion if you were talking about making appointments with someone. You want to always make sure that they understand the date of the appointment. And another thing that might be a little bit confusing to you is native Spanish speakers may say to you en 8 días or de hoy en ocho, which, as you know, ocho means 8. What they're meaning to say is 1 week from today. Now, in our minds, typically, we think of a week as 7 days, but Spanish speakers typically count the week starting with today. So today plus 7 days would be en 8 días. Here we have the months of the year: enero, febrero, marzo, abril, mayo, junio, julio, agosto, septiembre, octubre, noviembre, and diciembre. Most of them are cognates with English, so it should be pretty simple to figure out which month we're referring to. How do you answer the question, ¿Cuál es la fecha? What is the date? So a couple things to know here. When you are talking about the date in Spanish, typically you're going to say the number of the date and then de and then the month. So for example, we have el 25 de diciembre, December 25th. The 25 of December is what it's saying. Then we have el 4 de julio, July 4th. El 31 de octubre, October 31st. Now there is one separate thing you need to know here. If you're referring to the first day of something, instead of saying el 1 de enero, we're going to use the word primero, which means first. So you would say el primero de enero, January 1st. If you use the word uno, people would understand what you're saying, but it makes a lot more sense if you follow the rule and say primero. Cumpleaños. ¿Cuándo es su cumpleaños? Or, ¿cuál es la fecha de su cumpleaños? Mi cumpleaños es el 2 de septiembre. So as you can see, you're going to fill in when is your birthday with the number first and then the month. So typically you would say, mi cumpleaños es el, then fill in the number, de, then fill in the month. Or years. This gets a little bit tricky. So in English, if we are going to say a year, we typically divide it into the first two numbers and then the second two numbers. So we would say 1945. However, in Spanish, we divide that same year into 1945. Just a different way of splitting up the number. So in Spanish, that would be mil for 1,000. 900 means 900. 45 means 45. ¿Cuál es su fecha de nacimiento? How do you answer this question? When is your birthday? You can use the formula up at the top here. Es el, then you fill in the number, de, fill in the month, de, you fill in the year. So in the example, es el 2 de septiembre de 1980. Or sometimes you might have someone ask you, ¿Cuándo nació usted? When were you born? And the answer to that would be, yo nací, I was born in the past tense, el 2 de septiembre de 1980. So I was born, the date, then the month, then the year. So one other important difference to note in Spanish is that when you are abbreviating dates using numericals, the date in Spanish is written first and then the month. So typically in English, if you are going to abbreviate a date, for example, February 5th, 1985, the 2 would come first for February, followed by the 5 for the day. However, in Spanish, they place the day first and then the month. So if you are working in a setting where you make appointments for someone or you're talking about birth dates, you need to always make sure you include the month so that the patient isn't confused or you don't get confused by their answer. So just remember that the order is switched around when talking about dates. That is all I have for you today. I hope that you learned something new today, and we will have lots of practice so that you can make these dates become familiar in your mind, and Spanish should be starting to flow a little bit more for you. Gracias.